Everything's distorted. Like time is distorted. Like, obviously like the days of the week, things like that, like sleep schedule. Nothing is actually real. So it's like, yeah, I mean, it makes sense to base your schedule around like daylight.
I haven't been sleeping super well. Like my sleep's
been
like interrupted, very filled with very
anxious shit, anxiety,
dreams.
Have been able to surprisingly like avoid social media almost altogether, and it's been really helpful. I mean, it's just like it's hard not to look at first thing in the morning. Am I really hungry? Like, do I need this fuel for something? No, I'm not actually working. I'm not doing anything. I don't need to like sleep and like be rested for this day of work. Like, I don't really need to eat. You know what I mean? Like, it's so weird. Like, I don't need to do these things that I used to have to do in order to work.
Like in the 50s, made a model city using like rats inside of like a maze, and
giant metropolis, much like very dense.
Yeah.
So things like New York structured
and unevenly like distributed the resources, and just wanted to see like how America would play out. The section of them called the beautiful ones that were adequately like fed and like given like a nice amount of water, and they basically got really fat and would just like kind of lay around. But the ones outside would deal with like overcrowding and eventually started isolating themselves and would like ruin themselves and scratch into like their faces until like death. Yeah, so happy quarantine. Yeah, the whole idea was to see how like a modern civilization would work out. And speaking of the whole time and work thing, that was all invented in the 50s.
Right,
so
exactly.
Yeah, so you have a guy who does a study like that, and then you implement managerial models in the suburbs. And I always joke the first group of millennials or group of suburbanites became serial killers or hippies, so it didn't work.
And then those hippies swung around and became like
the baby boomers that are fucking us now.
Corporate moguls like Apple, Steve Jobs.
You're watching Steve Jobs interviews last night.
It's always white studies.
It's always white studies.
Right, that's what you do for fun.
No more large corporations, like divesting in, like especially certain evils that we already know are evil.
The need to make internet faster.
Because I really question that in the sense, in general, like what's wrong with the current level of internet that we have? Like, just start going like, do we really need to be shoveled that much amount of content? Right?
Even with isolation and quarantining, we're being pushed more and more into this like need for content and need for like internet access and faster internet access because of the increase of volume of people using all of these sites and these services. But yeah, I mean, of course it's getting like more and more imperative to like expand the fucking internet before it breaks.
For the advertisers and corporations and the content producers, because actually I think most of us, and I mean the hope
is high content producers. I've been waiting on a economic crash in 2020 since I was 18 years old. Like I've been just like waiting on this. I didn't think of
have this year in mind.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I've been telling people for years. It's just because of like, it has nothing to do with the virus dismantling a bunch of systems at once.
Instantly like that. We thought it would take another 5 years from now.
Yeah,
a slow decline.
Just thinking about like the airlines going bankrupt and like all the borders like closing. Like various countries becoming like nationalistic anyway. But anyway, what I was looking for was the student loan debt piling up, the housing market not quite hitting again, the tech bubble bursting, and then suddenly what's happening now, the unemployment rate kind of like skyrocketing. But those should have happened like over the next decade or whatever, not within a week. Mm-hmm. The thing is, like, once all the unemployment numbers like actually come in, America's gonna be like theoretically broke as shit. We only have like $50 trillion like to our names, so
already
so much money to China.
Yeah, so it's
a good advertisement for a planned economy.
America never went back into the green after 2008, and I think everyone kind of like forgot. We've been coasting on high-speed internet. the Pentagon's been like throwing money at the economy for the last 2 years to make sure it doesn't crash.
Especially I think the startup bubble is the best example of that.
Even think about Zoom. Zoom can't even handle the volume of people using it, times the fact that they don't own the servers, nor do they actually have like appropriate security measures.
Amazon owns almost all the servers that everyone else uses as well.
Mm-hmm.
In addition to being just fucking evil, they own almost all the servers that all of this shit is getting posted on.
As Marx would say, the means of production.
Oh, I just got a notification that says the meeting has been upgraded by the host.
I was just
Yeah, I saw
about to
that.
say that. I was like, are they listening to us? Because we just called them out.
Yeah, I was like, does Amazon want us to be like, oh, they're not so bad?
Zoom is like, oh shit, they just called us out. We better give them free. Yeah. Thank you.
I always like to call up my
We
sponsor.
take it back! Building an entire economy on these just like presumptions. How is that actually gonna hold water?
I mean, what's his face? Heraclitus always says you can't step in the same water twice. And you treat money the same way, it just like cycles.
And ultimately, I mean, that's the problem, right? We have so many blockages in this system when money
And a
should
fade-out
be,
economy.
when the money should be free flowing and like constantly circulating amongst ourselves, but it just gets spiked into the top and gets stuck there, and here we are.
How is it working from home?
It's been, honestly,
It's been so much
it's
fun!
been great. I actually, it's one of those things where I'm like, I actually could actually do my job completely remote. So I'm trying to use this time to also, you know, I definitely get into my work mode, and the first like, dang, you're not listening to me, and I'm like, sweet, I have to work, I have to make this point, and I have to prove to them that I can work from home, you know, properly. Localization of things need to start happening, where if these cheap imports and exports are not available to us anymore in terms of just supply, we need to start creating the supply.
Yeah, I mean, on that note, it's been really like fascinating to see how just with like the lack of supplies of PPE, the way that so many like independent designers and just like anyone with a sewing machine has been like called on to start making masks, whereas like also how like large companies that can do that are like not being called on out like in quite as an extreme way and are being sent like vague instructions to send things to the federal government that will then like sit there and not like necessarily be distributed properly. Whereas like for me, it's like you all gave me that address for the hospital, and then there was like also the print shop that came by and picked up the mask to bring to a different hospital, and like people are just like figuring out in a much more direct way right now how to get the like resources that we can like create where they need to go. Whereas like the corporate huge systems are taking so much longer. Yeah,
I mean,
they'll figure it out.
basically like everyone kind of needs to fend for themselves and support one another in this situation. Like there's no larger support system that's actually in effect.
Exactly.
Even like statewide, countrywide, obviously, we're literally being told like every state for themselves. So like of course that's like happening on a micro level too.
And FOMO, meanwhile, is like trying to cut Medicare, like still like harder for people to access healthcare.
Yep.
Welcome to blackness.
And I think that's the point, right? Like we just can't be waiting on these systems that have at this point clearly failed us. So we just react on our own terms where we can, you know, checking in with our people, our networks, our resources, we share those, and that's pretty much, that's the best that we can do at this point.
Yeah, I mean, America's done it before. That's what World War I was all about, right? It was like all the people getting to work and like going to the factories and building missiles for the government, and like working together to like you had to replace all the soldiers. That, yeah, exactly. Get your bandana. Like,
Exactly, like
yeah.
But like in like 2 years, you actually don't want me to do it.
Exactly. And then once the men come back, go back.
You actually can't.
Oh, fun fact, the rats and mice, because of the scraps from restaurants not being as accessible anymore will now start invading our homes too.
Amazing.
Yeah, that's just something else to look out for. Except for if you have a cat, right? Lucy got 2.
Yep, they will be on it. They're waiting. They're wishing a rat would come in here. Thank you.
Bye.
I'm seeing your faces. Bye.
Fun.